Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Symposium on Wikipedia and COVID-19. This event is presented by Wikimedia New York City, a volunteer-run nonprofit that connects people and institutions in the greater New York metropolitan area with Wikipedia, its related projects, and the larger free culture movement. For more information about Wikimedia New York City and future events, you can visit this link down here. We keep that updated with all of the current and recent and upcoming events, online events, as well as at some point in-person events. I'm Ryan McGrady. I'm on the Wikimedia New York City Board of Directors and will be a sort of facilitator moderator for this event. First, some quick background. So our organization's events have typically been all in person. A couple months ago, those effectively went on pause along with so many others. And we started thinking about other ways to continue building connections between the public and Wikipedia. As soon as we decided to organize a symposium like this, the first topic that we should choose was obvious. Last month, Wikipedia saw record-breaking page view numbers. Millions of people are turning to Wikipedia every single day for information about the pandemic, about the virus itself, about social distancing, about government responses, about the impact on education, the impact on libraries, the impact on the economy. When you hear about a new potential treatment, new research, and new recommendations, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to Wikipedia to cut through all the gossip and misinformation. But as any Wikipedia contributor will tell you, it's by no means a perfect resource. Most important is knowing how it works and how to understand the information that you see there. So who's writing it? How can we tell how good the quality is? How do people determine what material to include? What kinds of information or data are available? How does the community self-organize to coordinate maintenance of so much information? That's what this event is about. So tonight we're going to hear from 4 speakers who will present different perspectives about different aspects of COVID-19 coverage on Wikipedia and Wikipedia's sister sites. Netha Hussain will present about medical content related to COVID-19 on Wikimedia Project. Jason Moore will talk about COVID-19 and Wikipedia's non-medical coverage of the pandemic. Morata will talk about providing critical expertise to Wikipedia from a government agency. And Lane Rasberry will talk about COVID-19 as seen through Wikidata. Each talk will last roughly 20 minutes, and we'll have about 10-ish minutes for questions after each one. So those of you tuning in on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to ask questions in the comments. We'll be monitoring those. And in that 10 minutes after each talk, we'll highlight a few to ask to the speakers. Depending on how long we go, we may or may not be able to take some additional questions at the end. So please try to ask the questions in that space after each talk. I should also add that if you have to leave for whatever reason and you want to watch this later, these talks will all be available on Wikimedia Commons sometime in the next few days. We'll add a link to the event page. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our first speaker. Netha Hussain is a physician and researcher. She is currently pursuing her PhD in clinical neuroscience at the University of Gothenburg. She is an active contributor on Wikipedia, Wikidata, and Wikimedia Commons in English and Malayalam. She mostly contributes to topics related to medicine, healthcare, and women's biographies on Wikipedia. She has organized outreach events for increasing the diversity of participation of the Wikimedia movement and created GLAM partnerships for content donation to Wikimedia. She is currently a member of the editorial board of the Wiki Journal of Medicine. So here to talk about medical content related to COVID-19 on Wikimedia Project is Netha Hussain. I'll turn it over to you, Netha. Would you like me to share your screen share right away?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much, Ryan. The Wikimedia community has always responded to crises happening around the world. Wikimedia platforms have been used to share knowledge in various forms, whether it be articles, structured data, images, or news. The community has also responded to crises in the past. Previous crises that saw prompt response from the Wikimedia community were the Arab Spring in 2011, the Ebola virus outbreak in West Africa in 2014, and also in long-term crises like global warming. This kind of crisis response could be made possible by the coordinated actions of thousands of Wikimedians from across the world. Wikimedia offers a platform where anyone from any part of the world can edit and add new information. Wikimedians have also participated in activism, such as for preserving cultural heritage, sharing free knowledge, and fighting misinformation. So I think responding to COVID-19 crisis was not something new for Wikimedians. So in this presentation, I shall try to show how the medical content related to COVID-19 has developed on Wikipedia. I will mainly focus on the English language Wikipedia, but I will also talk about various translation initiatives and the situation of the medical content in language editions other than English. It was on 31st of December 2019 that suspicions about a cluster of previously unknown pneumonia cases were reported from China. Just 5 days after the disease was detected, the English Wikipedia article about COVID-19 first appeared. This was on 5th January 2020, and this slide shows the first version of the article as it was seen on 5th January. Since then, the article has undergone major expansion, and it now gives a comprehensive overview of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is how the lead section of the article looks like now. The article has been edited by over 2,500 editors, including medical doctors and researchers. It has gathered over 35 million views over the last 4 months and 14 million views in the last month alone. This kind of huge number of page views within a short time span of just 4 months is unprecedented. Since its creation, the article has undergone a series of additions, deletions, and even name changes. The article was first called the coronavirus outbreak, and then it was called the novel coronavirus outbreak. And when the disease was called a pandemic by the World Health Organization, Wikipedia responded accordingly by changing the article name to 2019-20 coronavirus pandemic. And recently, following a lengthy discussion, the article was renamed as the COVID-19 pandemic. This article gives a lot of information about the pandemic situation, and the figures and tables given in this article are updated every day. In the earlier slide, we saw the article about the pandemic, but there is also an article about the disease. It is titled Coronavirus Disease 2019, and this article contains specific information and updated research findings about the disease. It has been read by over 10 million people as of April 2020. When a topic area grows, it becomes important that the editors working on the topic should coordinate and communicate with each other. When such coordinated action is required between editors working on a particular topic, Wikipedians usually create Wiki Projects. Wiki Projects are special pages where everyone interested in the topic come together to work on that subject area. The Wiki Project for COVID-19 was started on 15th of March, and it keeps track of the articles related to COVID-19. It was started by Jason, who will also speak at the symposium after me on non-medical content related to COVID-19. This Wiki project has a section on trusted external sources where from COVID-19 data can be extracted. It has a dedicated page where missing topics are listed. There's a page that gives information about if an article related to COVID-19 has been created or tagged for deletion or needs improvement. And I think this Wiki project is a useful place for an editor to come and learn about what is happening around COVID-19 on Wikipedia. The main page of Wikipedia also has content related to COVID-19. The last time I checked, the main page of English Wikipedia has a section about the coronavirus pandemic, and it gives links to important pages related to the coronavirus situation. One of the main problems that many countries are facing today is misinformation. Misinformation has become so rampant in the context of coronavirus that World Health Organization called it an infodemic. Misinformation could be in the form of conspiracy theories, fake drugs, or even prevention methods that don't really work. There's a Wikipedia page that lists the fake medicines against COVID-19. There is an even longer Wikipedia article for listing all kinds of misinformation related to COVID-19. There was an article for specifically listing misinformation that is being circulated in India about COVID-19, but unfortunately that article was deleted from Wikipedia. So in addition to sharing reliable information, Wikimedians are also pointing out what is unreliable. Wikipedia is saying, look, these are all the kinds of misinformation that you can find on the internet, and don't trust them. So I think this kind of documentation of misinformation not only helps people to understand if a piece of social media news is fake news or not, but this kind of articles also give good material for researchers to understand what kind of fake news circulates in different countries. For example, misinformation circulating in Spain would be in Spanish language, and misinformation from Japan would be in Japanese language. The English Wikipedia article has several references from non-English sources. So someone looking for misinformation prevalent in, say, Spain can find it in English, even if they don't speak Spanish. And although Wikipedia has done a good job of documenting misinformation, what we see documented there is only a tip of the iceberg. A lot of instances of misinformation go unreported by the media, and if that they are not reported elsewhere, it cannot be added on Wikipedia. So many of my friends give me screenshots containing fake news that circulate in their social media feeds and ask me to put them up on Wikipedia. I can just do that because the fact that the specific social media post is misinformation is not present in any secondary source. Wikipedia does not rely on primary sources or original research. You have to get the fake news reported somewhere, such as in a news channel or a fact-checking website, for it to feature on Wikipedia. So being someone interested in combating fake news, lack of secondary sources is the main problem I'm facing now in expanding this kind of misinformation-related articles. Wikipedia also has articles about things that don't exist. A vaccine for COVID-19 doesn't exist yet, but Wikipedia has an article about the vaccine which documents the latest developments in vaccine research. In an effort to counter misinformation, it is important that Wikipedia has articles about things that don't exist because people search about that a lot on the internet. And when they see that there is no information on Wikipedia about the vaccine, they go to some other unreliable source and most likely end up believing in tall claims about the vaccine. There will be room for misinformation when no good information is available. So I think we should not, as Wikimedians, we should not hesitate to create an article about something just because that is a hypothetical object. Wikipedia also has pages about drug research for COVID-19. There are also articles like COVID-19 in pregnancy, mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic, mortality due to COVID-19, disease surveillance of COVID-19, etc., which have detailed information about specific medical aspects of the disease. On the other hand, we do not have separate articles about how COVID-19 affects particular demographic groups, such as like children, or the risk factors for severe illness in COVID-19 infection, or about the impact of COVID-19 on healthcare workers. So these are some of the topics that people are likely to search about, but we do not have separate articles for these aspects of the disease, at least yet. So like a good Wikipedian, I'm planning to close this knowledge gap by writing these articles in future. Wikipedia articles are not complete without images or other media. This animation shows the steps by which COVID-19 replicates in the human body. And I nagged my partner to make this animation for me because such animations are sparsely available. And concepts like flattening the curve can only be explained effectively by using pictures or media. Wikipedia has made good use of the images coming from reputed institutes such as National Institute of Health of the United States. The National Institute of Health provides high-quality images related to the structure of coronavirus in public domain, which is now in use not only on Wikipedia, but also in numerous other places, including news media. However, my subjective perception is that images on COVID-19 articles mostly come from the global north and feature white men performing medical procedures. There are no images of COVID-19 screening centers or awareness posters from several countries of the global south on Wikipedia. One possible reason for non-availability of such images could be that many countries are in lockdown and people don't have the freedom to travel outside of their homes to take pictures. So I think that this is one of the gaps that we need to address. Wikimedia Sweden, they have done pioneering work in convincing governmental organizations to donate awareness posters in 24 different languages. And these posters are now being used for illustrating Wikipedia articles. We need to create more partnerships with medical institutes or governments to get good quality media from them to illustrate COVID-19 articles on Wikipedia. Wikipedia also has a good collection of maps that has superimposed epidemiological data. And I think we are doing a good job of updating these maps regularly based on latest available statistics. Although this is working very well now, chances are that the pandemic situation will continue for a long time, and the editors who are now working very hard on these maps might get exhausted after many weeks and months. So in that case, we need to think about bringing new editors to do the updation and maintenance. I think we can begin by creating a step-by-step guide about where to find the data and how to create a new map, so that the new editors can follow the instructions and create new epidemiological maps without having to ask anyone for help. When the corpus of information on Wikipedia is growing so fast, it becomes hard to also make sure that information is reliable. New researches are coming out every day and information is changing rapidly. And this is particularly true of vaccine research, drug research, and even epidemiological research, where sometimes conflicting conclusions come from different studies. So in such cases, it is sometimes important to present only the information that is backed by the strongest scientific evidence. Sometimes we will also need to just present that studies have shown conflicting results and present both sides of conflicting research findings. So to be able to do this in a scientifically correct way, one needs to be an expert in the subject. We now need more experts on Wikipedia than ever due to the changing nature of the information related to the pandemic. We need them because we need to curate the large volume of research findings that is being published every day and present it in simple language for the general public to read and understand. The newspapers sometimes they give a distorted picture of research findings. Some research findings are described as groundbreaking or revolutionary, but in fact, results from isolated single-center trials cannot be as rosy as is described by the media. So this is where experts have to step in and make sure that research findings are presented reliably. On English Wikipedia, we do have doctors and researchers editing articles, but I think that we need the involvement of more experts, particularly on medical articles related to COVID-19 for careful fact-checking. When I ask academics to contribute to Wikipedia articles related to COVID-19, the common answer I hear is that, oh, I'm not an expert in COVID-19. But in fact, nobody is really an expert in COVID-19 because it's a new disease. And everyone is still at the learning stage. And what I would like to suggest to researchers is that even if you do not know much about the disease yet, please try to write as much as you know. And I have helped 3 of my researcher friends to get started to write on COVID-19 related articles, and they did such a marvelous job. And if you're an expert in, say, mental health, you can write about the impact of COVID-19 on mental health. If you're an economist, you might be interested in writing about economic aspects of the lockdown. There is something every expert can do in the context of COVID-19. But I would not encourage newcomer editors to edit high-profile articles right away, because if you accidentally make a mistake, it is less forgiven on high-profile articles. So you can start by writing on top pages of these articles, or you can expand smaller articles. Or even better, you can contact me and we can discuss on which articles you can help with on Wikipedia. I have also found that some people are trying to insert the names of commercial products into COVID-19 articles. But I think Wikipedia has done a good job of keeping the names of commercial products out of the articles as much as possible. And unless it's a company that is making a great stride in some discovery, they do not qualify to be on a medical article. And I think Wikipedians have been careful and also successful in ensuring that the advertisement style content is not present on COVID-19 related articles. And this screenshot, it shows the landing page of a task force that is particularly for fact-checking about COVID-19. And the main article about the disease have a lot of editors working on them. So there are higher chances that these high-profile articles have more reliable information. And this task force, it focuses on mainly on what I call like level 2 articles, the articles that don't attract as much viewership as the main articles. This is a part of the template that lists COVID-19 related articles on English Wikipedia in a structured way. This arrangement has been very useful for me to find what kind of articles are already present and what articles are missing. So I use this template as a starting point to find out what is missing so that I can create an article about it. The article about the coronavirus pandemic is now present in 124 language editions of Wikipedia. This is a very big accomplishment, and I think that this has happened due to the efforts of thousands of Wikipedia editors who write articles in these languages. But then, Wikipedia has over 300 language editions, so this means that the article does not exist in more than half of all language editions. In German, Russian, and other large languages, the article about the pandemic alone gathers over 5 million views. On the other hand, in smaller languages, there isn't even an article. The reason why the article doesn't exist in small languages is because they do not have the resources to create a new article from scratch, or because they do not have sufficient references available in their language. In order to counter this problem, a translation task force was started as a part of Wiki Project COVID-19. The goal of this task force was to create shorter versions of important articles related to COVID-19. These shorter articles are in a way summarized version of the long article in English. These are proofread by an expert, and references are cross-checked for authenticity. They are written in a culturally neutral way, taking care not to include too much of Anglo-centric or Western-specific content. They are also like time-proofed in a way that editors do not need to update the article every now and then, but it is enough to update once in a month or so. There are inbuilt tools within Wikipedia that helps translation from one language to another, and Wikipedia language editions without an article on COVID-19 can make use of these short versions to translate content. There is another initiative called Swasta. Swasta aims to create articles for create new articles and also counter misinformation in Indian languages. In the context of COVID-19, they are involved in watching Wikipedia pages in Indian languages to find inaccuracies and misinformation present in them. So when an editor finds misinformation, they can point it out to an expert, and based on the expert advice, misinformation can be corrected. So this is what Swasta is coordinating. And where do editors like me find resources for creating articles on Wikipedia? I use a lot of material from journal articles. Since I'm affiliated to a university, I'm able to access even paywalled content from reputed journals such as Lancet and Nature. I have also been following the updates from international organizations such as the World Health Organization, UNICEF, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, etc. And Wiki Project COVID-19 has got a sources page where high-quality sources providing COVID-19 information are listed. Many journals have made their COVID-19 content openly accessible. When it comes to news, I follow reputed news media like the New York Times and The Economist, etc., who have also provided some of their COVID-19 content openly accessible. Sometimes when I see that an interesting bit of information on news media, when I see something interesting on news media, I update Wikipedia with that information. So I wouldn't exactly call this work, because in the process of updating Wikipedia, I'm also learning something. The content on Wikipedia is used widely. The text and media have been reused at many places, most prominently by Google. If you search for latest COVID-19 statistics on Google, you are likely to find the statistics extracted from Wikipedia. So Wikipedians have got great responsibility, because the content that create is magnified several times and used in ways that we don't yet know fully. So I take this opportunity to thank all Wikimedians for their excellent work to make Wikipedia more informative, reliable, and updated. Thank you. These are my attributions, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have some questions. Let's see. So there are several questions that have to do with how does Wikipedia determine what is misinformation? What's involved here, that's one of the relevant questions that's up on the screen now. If information is being labeled as misinformation, what if it is inflammatory but not fake? How does one know if something is fake? Who decides?
Wikipedia relies very much on secondary sources. So if something has been classified as misinformation by, say, a journal or a news article, or there are specific fact-checking websites where they fact-check for information and they find that it is misinformation, Wikipedia takes content from them. So it is not Wikipedia editors who make that choice, saying that this is misinformation, but they look for all these secondary sources and use that content to as references for these misinformation related articles. There is also a Wikipedia article which says xenophobia and racism related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So inflammatory information goes into that page, while misinformation goes into another page. There's also one page for, especially for like medical misinformation related to COVID-19, and a lot of editors update those pages also. Yes. Did I answer that question?
I think so. Their related question has to do with how are you achieving quality control for medical articles? I think you've touched on this a bit, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about quality control.
Yes, I think we can do quality control because when a lot of people are reading and editing these articles, readers identify misinformation and correct them. There are several editors who are watching COVID-19 specific related articles and trying to find misinformation as and when they are inserted. People like me watch several articles related to COVID-19, like go through them every day, looking for new changes, finding if they are backed by citations, finding if these citations are reliable at the first place, and so forth. So it's a group of editors who are achieving this. It's not possible by just one person to like go through all these articles, but because many eyeballs are looking to all these articles, the reliability is increased. But Wikipedia is not a reliable source. Wikipedia doesn't claim to be a reliable source. So there can be misinformation inserted in one or two places, especially in articles which are not very much read by people, in articles which have fewer viewership and fewer editors looking at that. But then as the article grows, more people start contributing, more debates occur in terms of, what should be there in the article and what should not be there. And they end up becoming more and more reliable with time. Thank you.
Thanks. And so there's a question, are there examples where work of Wikipedians has exposed misinformation campaigns relevant to COVID-19 or similar that were not previously known?
I don't exactly know. When a news media or like a secondary source classifies something as misinformation, we add that on Wikipedia. So I don't know if Wikimedians have like found new misinformation somewhere or like followed a misinformation campaign and taken content from there. I'm not exactly sure. But I think the collection of misinformation we have on Wikipedia, on English language Wikipedia, is like it's very broad, ranging from like sources from non-English languages. And we also have misinformation not only about the pandemic, but also about drugs and vaccines, and also conspiracy theories about COVID-19 being a bioweapon and so forth. And conspiracy theories saying that the virus originated from all these countries and all these labs and so forth. So the range of misinformation we have is big, but I still think that we only have a tip of the iceberg, because a lot of misinformation goes unreported by secondary sources, and we cannot have that on Wikipedia because they are not reported on secondary sources.
Great. There's a question about if you could provide any examples. Do any examples of commercial products added to COVID-19 articles come to mind, and the policy considerations for deleting them? So, people who are trying to promote certain products or services.
Yes. So anything that would qualify as advertising cannot stay on Wikipedia. And this has been mostly, I have seen this mostly in articles, in the articles related to vaccine and drug research, where people would like to push their COVID-19 testing product as good, or they are trying to push their like vaccine research as groundbreaking or something like that. They also have a verifiable source usually. Their vaccine research engagements might have been reported in, say, some news media, and they use this as references trying to insert content into the article. But as long as it qualifies as advertising, it cannot stay on a Wikipedia page, and it will eventually get removed. And on articles, there is an article specifically for the World Health Organization's response to the coronavirus pandemic. And there, I have seen people trying to list the commercial products which have been approved by the World Health Organization. In fact, the World Health Organization doesn't approve any commercial product. They just create a repository of the commercial products that are available. So when people try to do that, I make sure that the content is removed. Yeah.
And because there are a lot of questions about the misinformation angle of this, you mentioned a couple of times about some of the misinformation articles, including one that you said was deleted. I think you said it was about misinformation specifically in India, as I recall.
Yes.
One of the common questions about Wikipedia is, how does something get deleted? So can you just say a little bit more about why that was deleted?
Yes. So anybody on Wikipedia can tag an article for deletion if they think that it should not be there on Wikipedia. So when it was I who created the misinformation article specifically for India, because India being such a diverse country, there is a lot of misinformation circulating in different languages. And I can read Indian languages, and I saw that, okay, now there is such a lot of content specifically from India that we need a particular article for that. So there was no other country which had misinformation related article specifically for that country. India was the first one to have it. So I was trying to set a precedent in having a new article for India. And the article stuck around for some time. And what I did was that I took a lot of content which I have written myself for other misinformation related articles to build up the text for the India related article. And after a while, somebody tagged it for deletion. And the main criticism I received it was that this article is a fork of the existing Wikipedia articles. So that I have copied some content from other articles. And some editors even accused me of pushing a point of view. That was because I was pushing the people were not, I could not understand what exactly was the point of view they were talking about. But this was one criticism I received. And some people said that I was portraying India in bad light. Yes, so there were many people who were in support of the deletion. And that article was deleted like 2 days ago. Yes.
All right, this is fascinating. Thank you so much for presenting this. I know it's very late your time, so I appreciate staying up to present this great information with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks. All right. I'm going to bring up Jason Moore. Pull up all of this. So Jason Moore is based in Portland, Oregon, and has been a daily Wikipedia editor for more than a decade. He ranks as one of the 100 most active English Wikipedia editors of all time, and contributes to a wide variety of topics ranging from local history and public art to current events, music, and politics. He founded the Wiki Project COVID-19 and actively supports other campaigns and affiliates within the Wikimedia movement, including Art and Feminism, Cascadia Wikimedians, and Wikimedia LGBT+. Jason, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Let me share my screen here, and I'm hoping you can hear me as well.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Share screen. All right, does this work?
Yes.
Great. All right, thanks for that introduction, Ryan, and thanks for the opportunity to present today, and thanks to everyone who is tuning in to watch and listen. My name is Jason Moore. I've been editing Wikipedia for over a decade as user Another Believer. And as Ryan said, I'm based in Portland, Oregon on a surprisingly sunny day today. I'm going to be covering, giving an overview of both Wiki Project COVID-19 and giving an overview of Wikipedia's non-medical coverage. I do not have a medical background, and so I do not bring that perspective whatsoever to this discussion. I didn't want to really talk about myself too much here or share my own CV, but I think in this case it might be a little bit helpful just to give a very brief overview of the type of work I typically do on Wikipedia, just to kind of give some insight into the perspective that I'm bringing to this discussion. So as Ryan mentioned, I've been a daily editor for over 12 and a half years, and in that time I've made over 350,000 contributions to English Wikipedia, and about 100,000 more to Wikimedia Commons and other Wikimedia projects. So I'm an editor where Wikipedia has just become kind of not only a hobby, but just kind of an everyday part of my life. When I see something in the news, I compare, Wikipedia's coverage to various sources, and I just every day I'm constantly working on Wikipedia. I just love it so much. Some of the projects that I support are Art and Feminism and Wikimedia LGBT+. So I have experience kind of working specifically to address various content gaps. And I have a lot of interest just working on wiki projects of all sorts. So there's Wiki Project Oregon, which obviously is kind of based on just my local geography. And I write a lot about public art and sculpture. Every year I do a campaign called Wiki Loves Pride to create and improve Wikipedia articles related to LGBT culture and history. And locally, I like to help organize lots of meetups and workshops. So I've helped teach other people how to edit Wikipedia at various, libraries and museums and universities here locally. So that's just kind of a very brief overview of the type of work that I've been doing in the movement for some time now. So I first started following COVID-19 back in January when I started really watch listing the initial Wikipedia articles about the outbreak, which of course had to do with China. Again, I don't really have that strong interest in medicine or health in particular, but I've been to China a few times and Hong Kong, and I was just really curious to see kind of how the government was reacting to the pandemic. And so that kind of is what piqued my interest as this first started getting in the news in China. And of course, in February, I then started following Wikipedia articles about the pandemic spread. So watching articles about Iran and Italy and South Korea. And on March 11, the World Health Organization recognized the outbreak as a pandemic. And so several days later, that is when I decided to go ahead and create Wiki Project COVID-19. So I did that on March 15. And it may be hard to see some of the visuals I've included in these slides, and I'm sorry for that. But what I have here is just a screenshot essentially showing the viewer statistic page views from January to March. And what you'll see is just a huge increase in the number of people who are watching at the time, the parent article that was called 2019-20 Coronavirus Pandemic. And there was a good week or two where I feel like every day the Wikipedia article was getting at least 1 million views, if not like almost 1.4 million views a day. So we're talking about just a mind-boggling amount of traffic. Netha briefly described what a wiki project is, but just for those who may not be familiar, a wiki project is defined as a group of contributors who want to work together as a team to improve Wikipedia. And typically you see this in the form of various groups of editors who want to work around a particular topic area. So when I wanted to create a space around COVID-19, I really just wanted it to be temporary or permanent, and I wanted it to be a place where editors could work together, ask questions, raise concerns, and really work to get some consistency across a lot of the various articles that we first started seeing created on Wikipedia. And I had no idea if you know, that page would be deleted or moved or renamed or folded into an existing wiki project. I didn't really care at the time. I just felt that there was a need for a space, and so I drafted a few sentences and hit the save button. I really can't take too much credit for starting this project. It really only required me to type in a few characters and hit the save button and watch everyone else kind of come and contribute. So I'm proud and happy that I've had that little contribution to this project, but I can really only take so much credit. But what my motivating factor was, I really saw this as an opportunity for Wikipedia to inform readers and have even more real life impact. And I put even more in italics and parentheses here because I truly believe the Wikimedia movement has real life impact around the world every single day. But there was a really strong sense of importance and urgency when it came to COVID. I feel like we're adding life-saving information to Wikipedia, and the fact that that information is read by people all around the world, it really resonated with me that there was a strong need for this space at this time. So after creating the project, I posted some invitations on various article talk pages related to COVID, and members joined incredibly quickly. I did get a little bit of pushback for creating kind of a new project without going through some hoops, or at least seeing if other people were interested, and for kind of having a project that has such a narrow focus. But I've kind of learned there's always going to be that little minority of people who want to dissent with anything you do on Wikipedia. So just be bold and do it. And I got a lot of thanks. As soon as I started creating the project, I really got a lot of thank you notifications and talk page messages and emails from people who were just really pleased to see this new space created. So this is a slide that I just wanted to kind of really briefly give a sense of the rapid growth that this project saw. I've been contributing for over a decade, and I've never seen so many people sign up to participate in a wiki project specifically. I've seen a lot of people comment on, you know, requests for comments and various discussion pages, but this was really, really impressive to see. So I created this project on March 15, and again, we're talking about the project specific to English Wikipedia. And immediately the project was joined by 30 people. Within 24 hours, there were 50 people who had signed up to join this project. Within 2 weeks, so on April 1st, there were over 100 members, and the project crossed the 150 member threshold by April 20. As of this morning, last time I checked, there were 164 people who signed up to join this project. There are many, many other people who are contributing content around this, so I don't want that to go unsaid and unnoticed. But and there, to that point, there are also project members who may not be contributing that much. But just as a general kind of rule of thumb, I was just so impressed to see the rapid growth of this project. And what you see at the screenshot here is just the info box for the project, and someone created this little logo that's kind of reminiscent of the virus itself. So I thought that was kind of worth sharing. I wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of the project. It actually has no stated goals. Some wiki projects have very formal goals. None have been posted to the project page yet, but in general, the project works to create and improve coverage of content related to the virus, the disease, and the ongoing pandemic at English Wikipedia. Netha briefly described some of the task forces that you see kind of under the umbrella of this wiki project, but just to kind of give a little bit of insight into some of the other ones. There are task forces that are focused on case counts. So there's even a page where people have kind of signed up to take on the task of monitoring case counts in their particular country or region, and they've kind of committed themselves to going through Wikipedia articles and updating that data. There's another task force that's focused specifically on equipment and shortages related to equipment. And as Netha described, there's a task force that's specifically focused on translation work. Some of the other collaborations, Women in Red has a page that is about women kind of affiliated with COVID and the pandemic. And Women in Red is a project that seeks to address Wikipedia's content gap by creating articles about notable women and turning those red links blue, hence the name. So it's nice that we have a collaboration with that group. And as Netha described, there's also the Wikimedia Joint Support Task Force, which is a collaboration between Wikimedia United Kingdom and Wiki Project Med. If you are to look at the scope of Wiki Project, there are over 1,000 articles under its umbrella. And if you start throwing just various content pages, category pages, redirect, and project pages, you're looking at over 2,250 pages. And if you go ahead and throw talk pages into the mix, why not? We're talking about over 4,400 various pages on Wikipedia where editors are working together around the topic of COVID-19. So even though it's a very narrow focus, we're talking about a massive amount of content. And I know these visuals, again, may be kind of difficult to see. They're more just kind of reminders for me to what I wanted to talk about briefly, but just more on the structure. Members came, they built a framework around this project. They hung a barn star and kind of made the space a home. You saw editors working very quickly to put project banners and tag all the related pages and assess those articles. And editors worked to combat misinformation and create a lot of different talk page discussions about everything you can possibly imagine. So the bot that was used to archive discussions, I think, had to be lowered down to 24 hours at one point, just because there was so much information coming and so many discussions that we really had to kind of utilize that bot for archiving those discussions. So you see three visuals here on this slide, and one of them is just the assessment chart, which shows how editors work to not only kind of rank importance of various articles, but also designate a quality on Wikipedia's assessment scale. So you'll see there's a lot of stub class and start class articles, around 250 C class articles, and then not a lot of good articles. That's not surprising. I mean, this is such a new area of content being created that it's not surprising that we don't have good articles yet, which is not to say there aren't good quality articles, but I just mean articles that have been given that kind of stamp of good article status yet. So lots of work to do there, but just want you to see how editors are working to kind of assess all that content. The middle graphic you see here is March viewer statistics for Wiki Project COVID-19 compared to Wiki Project Medicine and Wiki Project Viruses. And what you see here is just a massive increase in the number of people who are accessing the Wiki Project COVID-19 page. And no shade to Wiki Project Medicine and Wiki Project Viruses. I'm sure they both do amazing work, but I think this really speaks to the need for this particular project at this particular time. There are instances here in which the readership for Project COVID-19 is 10 times Wiki Project Medicine here. So even if ultimately, you know, COVID-19 project is kind of placed under the Wiki Project Medicine umbrella, let it be shown that at least in this particular time, there's definitely a need for this particular space. The final visual that you'll see here is just a chart showing the number of Wiki Project participants between March 15 and April 20. So again, you're just seeing that initial jump of 30 to 50 to 100, and you know, it kind of, people kept just joining every day, and it kind of plateaued at around 150, and like I said, we're up to above 160 now. Just a little bit more on the structure of the project and how people are collaborating. There are some very helpful automatically generated reports that people have developed. So you have various things like article alerts, current events that are being populated, I think maybe based on the in the news feature on Wikipedia. There's traffic reports, bots scrolling to do all sorts of things that I can't even speak to because that's way over my head. There is a bot that is scrolling wiki data to just generate a constantly updated list of people who have died from the disease. I was watching it for a while just because I thought it was helpful to kind of track, and I had to just take it off my watch list. It was just it's too much of a reminder of how awful this is. But it is important that we have bots doing this kind of work. So I think that's very helpful. The graphic that you see here is actually just a screenshot of the most edited articles that were on the Wiki Project's page at the time I took the screenshot. So this just gives you an idea of how a bot can be used to create a visual and really just show some really helpful information. So in this case, this shows, which articles were really being actively edited at that particular time. And Wiki Project COVID is a great place just to have a collection of resources for improving content. I know there's even a page that's dedicated to new Wikipedia editors and kind of encouraging how they may be able to be most helpful to Wikipedia. Like I said, the talk page is very active, so it's a place where people can come share updates, ask questions, post invitations to come assist with particular tasks. So that could be, come copy edit this article for me, or really whatever. So it's just a place where editors can assess and discuss their various options, form a consensus, and then my favorite part is really just sometimes seeing editors divide and conquer. So once editors have kind of made a decision about, how they might want to rate certain articles or which sources they may deem appropriate, you'll see them then kind of break off and go update all the articles quickly. I have focused mostly on English Wikipedia and its Wiki Project COVID-19, but like Netha said, there are at least 14 or 15 Wiki projects in various other languages. So you'll see those listed here in the slide. Wikidata, which Lane will speak to later, also has a Wiki Project COVID-19, and there's even a Wiki Project India COVID-19 task force at Wikipedia. So I don't know a lot about Wikidata, so I'm very curious to hear what Lane will say about those later. And like Netha said, she described the project in which editors are working with experts to reduce misinformation in Indian languages. And at Wikimedia Commons, you see Wiki Project COVID-19 Graphics, which is a group of editors working specifically to create and improve illustrations, graphics, and various other media across all the Wikimedia projects, which obviously are super helpful. So this just gives you kind of a very brief overview of the work that's being done, not just in English Wikipedia, but really throughout the entire Wikimedia movement. I wanted to just kind of thank people by wrapping up my first half of this by displaying two barn stars here. They're COVID barn stars that go to just all the Wiki Project members, and to that extent, all the non-members, all the people who are just improving Wiki, content about COVID-19 and have never even heard of Wiki Project 19. I thank you all for that work. If you are interested in Wiki Project COVID-19, you can go to Wikipedia, find the search bar, and enter WP:COVID. Or you can really find the banner on any article talk pages related to the disease and the pandemic. For this part of my presentation, I want to focus just a little bit on the non-medical coverage of the pandemic. I couldn't really think of a good way to showcase a lot of the articles, especially not knowing if everyone was kind of watching on various screen sizes or just listening in. So what I did was I just put a screenshot up of the template that actually Netha used as well, which is template called COVID-19 pandemic. So if you're on Wikipedia and you want to follow along, you can go type in the template name there. Otherwise, I'll just try to kind of give a vocal overview of this, but I think it's a super helpful collection of all the many, well, not all, but most of the many COVID-related Wikipedia articles, and they're all just encapsulated in this really, really helpful and well-organized template. So you see some primary articles there related to the pandemic, the virus, and the disease. You'll see a timeline section that has a breakdown by month of kind of cases related to the pandemic, case counts, and then responses. So those are very helpful. There's a couple for each month broken down. But what I really wanted to focus on was the locations part of the template and the impacts part of the template. There are some other fields related to health issues, institutions, people, and data. And there's a lot of really amazing content there, but I can't even follow it all. There's just so much here. So I'm going to focus on some of the top parts of this template. So the locations part of this template is just overwhelmingly impressive to me. You will find more or less a Wikipedia article related to the pandemic for every country on every continent on the planet. Beyond that, you will find articles at the state level for various nations, and even further, in some cases, you'll find Wikipedia articles about specific cities. So speaking to the United States, I know I've done a lot of work on the article about Portland, Oregon. I've seen ones for Columbus, Ohio, New York City. I think there's one for London. So just it's very fascinating to me that you can find articles about the pandemic ranging from the continent level to the region level to the national level, all the way down to the city level. And the typical framework for these location-based articles, there's some variety, but more or less you'll have a timeline that kind of gives an overview of the cases. So when did the virus enter the country? Maybe an overview of when there were some major milestones. So, the first 10 cases, 100 cases, 1,000 cases, whatnot, the number, death milestones, unfortunately. So just kind of an overview of the timeline. The second part of the article typically is focused on the government's response. So how did the government react? What restrictions were implemented? What bans were put in place and then possibly lifted and whatnot? And then, of course, you'll have sections dedicated to the economic and social impacts. So they can be related to, the entertainment industry, various other industries, such as, the food industry, the hospitality and service industries, restaurant industries. And typically the articles will also kind of focus a little bit on the political impact, the impact on public transportation, school closures, sports, you name it. They're all slightly different, and they all kind of have a little bit of a local flair and component to them. But in general, this is kind of what you'll start to see repeated across a lot of these geography-based articles. My favorite content is actually the impacts part of the template. So I don't really know what to do here other than just kind of call out some of the ones that I think are a bit interesting. I'll give just a brief overview of how they're divided. So the first field is related to culture and entertainment. And here you will find articles related to the pandemic's impact on cinema and television, the education system, the music industry, performing arts. There's a really great article about the impact on the video game industry. And you might even be surprised to see that there's a Wikipedia article specifically dedicated to the pandemic's impact on the Walt Disney Company. So I mean, that just shows you how specific some of this gets, but it's valid and it's important. So I just want to highlight kind of the sense of scale here. Some are very overarching and some are incredibly specific. In the society and rights field, you see Wikipedia articles dedicated to the pandemic's impact on human rights, on religion, on abortion, on the LGBT community. So for those editors who are more interested in kind of the sociological impact of that, I invite you to come take a look at some of these articles. There's one on social media, social stigma, and I think Netha also mentioned the one on xenophobia and racism. So there's a lot of very interesting content here. I'm not much of an economics guy, but the socioeconomic parameter has some articles, obviously just about the economic downturn that has been caused here and what's been kind of dubbed the coronavirus recession. But there are some other articles that are more specific to like the meat industry in the United States and the restaurant industry in the United States. My particular favorite, which I also happen to start, is an article specific to the impact on the global cannabis industry. There's also one related to tourism and another on travel restrictions. The next parameter is dedicated to information. So you'll see kind of the impact on journalism. We've been over a little bit about the article on misinformation. There's another on media coverage. And my favorite, again, which I started, so I'm tooting my own horn here, but there's a Wikipedia article specifically about Wikipedia's response to the pandemic, which of course ruffled lots of feathers. Sometimes I like to kind of just push the envelope, and I know there's going to be all sorts of accusations of navel gazing, but the article was nominated for deletion and kept, so it's obviously a notable topic. And I think it's super, and I'm personally just always fascinated to read about how Wikipedia responds to various things. So I'm kind of glad that I got the ball rolling on that one. And then there's kind of a catch-all category with other links about politics, protests, the pandemic's impact on the environment, international relations, science and technology, you name it. So I just really wanted to give a very brief overview by calling out some of the non-medical components of this pandemic and how editors are working together to focus more on the impact and the sociological component to this. I did call out some of the articles that I've personally started and I'm working on. So if you have any interest in those and you want to reach out to me directly to help with those, you're more than welcome. So what have we learned? There's a wide range of topics here, and I think this really speaks to the pandemic's unprecedented impact across a wide variety of disciplines. Let this be a reminder to everyone who's watching and listening. There are many, many ways to contribute to Wikipedia and other Wikimedia projects. So I encourage you all to just be bold, make those edits, make those improvements. Let's make the internet better. And of course, please stay safe. My final slide here also is just some attribution. So I will post that here. And with that, I will rejoin the group and see if maybe anyone has some questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Jason. So there are some questions. So one of the questions here ties into something that I was going to ask, which is, so you're a very prolific editor. Do you have a workflow or process? Any advice for newbies? Have you started any other Wiki projects? So a lot of things here. Okay. But let me give an example of what came to mind for me. Is that for anybody, if you go to the like the COVID-19 response in a particular state, if you look at the beginning of that article, it was almost certainly started by Jason. Almost so many of the states. I went through all of them recently, and almost all of them, it seemed like, were created by Jason. So what is your process? How do you determine where the gaps are on Wikipedia that you need to fill? I know that's a big question. Maybe you can give us a little digest answer.
Sure. And I meant to kind of very briefly describe my initial contributions to the project in my presentation, and I kind of glossed over it. But I can't lie. When this first really blew up, it was very difficult to keep up with the pace of the information that was coming in. I mean, the number of claims being added to some of the initial Wikipedia articles was absolutely overwhelming. And I felt like a lot of my work was literally just taking all of the claims that people were adding and then just sorting them. So throwing them over to new articles. And so I was obviously focused on the United States article, and I knew that there would be a need for state articles sooner. I knew early on that even if I was creating stubs prematurely, I was working very hard to create stubs for every state of, in the United States, create stubs for countries, create stubs for cities, and just start either formally forking content over or just creating stubs from scratch, and knowing it might ruffle some feathers, but also kind of knowing that obviously this is going to be a notable topic. So just kind of being bold and not waiting for permission to do things. Just get the ball rolling on articles. We'll sort things out sooner or later. So I am a very prolific editor. I edit every day. at least 50 edits a day. I mean, it's just kind of something I'm constantly doing. I check throughout the day, and I check while I'm watching TV. It's just a hobby of mine. So it's not difficult for me to spend a few minutes to just get the ball rolling on lots of different articles. And to answer your question about how do I know when to do it, I just do it. Just be bold and do it. And if someone slaps you on the wrist for doing something wrong, so be it. If someone nominates your article for deletion, so be it. I'm not bothered by any of that. I think I'd rather just get the ball rolling on something and see how it pans out.
That sounds like a really good answer. So here's another question, and I'd also like to bring Netha back in for this question because it's a question about what are the general backgrounds of contributors? How do you know of active medical practitioners and virologists participating in editing? And maybe Jason, you can give, if you have a sense of the non-medical side of things, if that's possible to summarize anyway, and maybe we can bring Netha back in afterwards to talk about the medical side.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to answer the general backgrounds of contributors in general, but what I hope my part of this presentation demonstrates and illustrates is that there are people from a wide variety of backgrounds. I have no medical background. I don't know anything about viruses or diseases, and I'm contributing to Wikipedia every single day. And that's just based on my own personal interests. I love learning and teaching simultaneously. So that is what Wikipedia, provides to me. That's the outlet that it offers in my life. So when I see things in the news, I'm helping to put that information into Wikipedia. So I hope that my presentation at least shows you that there are people from all backgrounds with all sorts of interests working on all sorts of articles. So don't let not having a medical background prevent you from not contributing to even Wikipedia topics that are maybe primarily medical based.
I agree completely with Jason that we have people coming from all backgrounds, librarians, doctors, researchers, and sometimes it's not possible to know what a person's background is because Wikipedia allows people to edit anonymously, and people don't really need to put their background on their user pages or anywhere else for that matter. But usually I would expect that more of my doctor friends or researchers usually edit articles related to COVID-19. But this time, most of the physicians I know, they had a lot of work at the hospital side. So they were very busy with treating patients in the ICUs and in the wards. So some of them could not contribute as effectively as they could. This I know because I have been friends with other physicians who write articles on Wikipedia. But as far as I know, we have participation from people from all different backgrounds, very many countries, and very many languages.
Great, thank you so much. And I do want to, just before we go to the next speaker, put up on the screen here the short link on how to get involved with the COVID-19 Wiki Project down there, enwp.org/WP:COVID, and you can see the work that we've been talking about. Thanks so much, Jason and Netha, and let's move on to our next talk here. So I'd like to turn it over to Thais Morata, a public health researcher based in Cincinnati. She has been editing Wikipedia on a variety of subjects, mostly related to occupational health and hearing loss prevention in the workplace. She contributes as co-instructor to several university classes with the help of the Wiki Education Foundation platform to improve coverage of public health, occupational safety and health, acoustics, and audiology articles. She actively organizes or supports various campaigns within the Wikimedia movement. Hi, Thais.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I'm very happy to be here. I'll be sharing my experience, and I'm just gonna go to share my screen now. Okay, there's a little bit of a delay. It's coming up. Yeah. So I work at this institute, which is one of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. And so I'm going to talk a little bit. This Centers for Disease Control is almost like the World Health Organization in terms of response to situations like this and generating guidance and so forth. So we have a lot of information. Now, the Wikipedia work across CDC is uneven. It's a very large institution. And the institute where I work is one of the pioneers in contributing content to Wikipedia. So also as a disclaimer, I should say that I started doing Wikipedia work through the Cochrane collaboration. The Cochrane collaboration, the systematic reviews, and that's where I first, in one of their conferences, attended a Wikipedia workshop. And then later on, there was work starting at my institute. I'm also interested in the publishing of scientific journals, and I'm recently joined the Wiki Journal of Science. So one issue to attract more scientists to write for Wikipedia, you have to understand there are different aspects that might prompt people to decide to join. For instance, those that work in government agencies are using social media, but it's very uneven. More agencies, depending on the nature of the work, than others. Some have different levels of autonomy. Some are not authorized to talk about work in social media. And the other aspect to consider is, what are the motivations? So why do scientists would want to use social media to communicate science? In the past, we were restricted to publishing in the peer-reviewed literature. Then recently we started doing, not so recently, but we started doing science blogs in our institute using Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and stuff. And of course, I will be focusing on the work bringing science into Wikipedia. I put together the Altmetric score. These are new metrics that evaluate scholarly contribution to any scientific publication. So, and they are measuring the reaction that the public get through blogs, through tweets, through Facebook, to scientific content. And this is just one example of one metric, but this for scientists brings them okay, so the penetration of my findings are being evaluated and measured through this other media. So that's I'm hoping, and certainly this is another encouragement for them to become involved. So, but as one of the early federal agencies who wanted to do some work in Wikipedia, you kind of don't know what way to go. So we held a meeting with several government and other research groups who wanted to get involved in Wikipedia, with several of the platforms within the Wikimedia umbrella, to discuss strategy. And of course, there is not one model that fits all. But it was a very good brainstorming on how to go about it, since our mission is so immense and so many things that have to be done. So, but our director early on said, we want to put research into practice. We want the research to leave, the library and get in the hands of people, so they incorporate the latest and there is not delay into that. So he was very supportive. And we, one of our science blogs, we describe all the different things we are doing to bring health content into Wikipedia. So if you go now your science blog, Wikipedia Matters, you see the description of our strategy. But basically, we started hiring Wikipedians in residence who directly improve Wikipedia articles. They contribute to strategic planning. How can more people can get involved? They coordinate and train our staff to make contributions. We organize local or global events, editathons, we present at conferences. Also, we share our resources with Wikipedians who are interested in a certain topic. Also, the Wikipedian created a Wiki Project for occupational safety and health and help manage it. Of course, in situations like a pandemic or an emergency, it became very clear that, okay, we are very busy at the CDC generating content, but that's not where people are going to look for the content. We could see that, the most visited sites during Ebola, for instance, was CNN. Sorry, not CNN, was Wikipedia, greater than CNN, CDC, and the World Health Organization. I think, of course, they were helped by making content available in many of the languages of the most affected countries. So, of course, these results catch people's attention that us who are generating the content about the topic should try to make our content available into Wikipedia. Okay, as these are opportunities that we have to disseminate the science, but also there are challenges because emergent situations, whether they are natural disasters or diseases, there's a concern that the information that we provide is updated, coordinated, and consistent. We are large institutions. We don't want people going in different directions. So that triggers the need for our scientists to seek internal approval before adding content to Wikipedia, which slows down the process. It's not that much fun. I can understand why it exists, but in a way cuts down our autonomy to put stuff there, which does not apply to our Wikipedian in residence. Right now, our Wikipedian in residence is John Sadowski. That's his username, John P. Sadowski, NIOSH. So he has been doing quite a bit of work related to COVID. And because of the nature of our institute, we're focused on protecting those exposed at work. And so he developed several articles related to that I listed here. And he cleaned up other several articles. These are, they are not directly related. They are not the COVID pages by themselves, but they are very important topics because there are certain occupational groups that are at very high risk. So John has more freedom. Our Wikipedia has more freedom than people like me and our scientists to do edits. And actually, since I'm not, I do not as an experienced Wikipedian as most of the other ones who are involved are, in a way, it's almost a bit intimidating to do contributions to the main articles. So, and given the need that I would have to ask permission to do that, the contribution that me and my colleagues are doing is we go in to give citations and external links to the main articles, and we go to the articles in the category COVID. So we are alerted. We know all the documents that we're generating. We get notified all the new information that CDC is generating. So we go either to the doc page of the article, or we'll try to alert Wikipedians to the cross-project, where the cross-project coordination takes place, such as in this link I mentioned. And also we provide support. We have a very fruitful, fun collaboration with university courses that incorporate Wikipedia writing assignments. And so we try to bring those groups into the list of activities. We have another blog that explains our strategy in partnering with university programs and wiki education. Basically, we have many collaborations with universities, and we try, and teachers teaching different classes. So we try to coordinate from one year to the next to keep improving articles in some topics. So as COVID started, we had two classes that were going on that were somewhat related to health. One was the interprofessional perspectives in occupational safety and health, and the other occupational epidemiology. So the classes had started, they were kind of almost halfway when the COVID happened. And so what we did was to bring up the occupational issue. There was this excellent article in the New York Times who identified, looking at OSHA data, they put together a very nice set of data on the people who are at greater risk because of their job. And we shared that with the students taking these classes in which they had a Wikipedia assignment. So the students ended up working on topics related to these occupations that put the workers at greater risk, or also at other articles related that could have implications for COVID. The examples are, one of the occupations at greater risk is are dentists. So a new page was created on dental aerosols, explaining the transmission. And then there were several related to infectious diseases, like the ones listed here. So what we are learning in this process is that these emergencies, they reveal important gaps in broader topics. As Jason pointed out, a universe of different topics that are related and very affected. In health, in particular, like topics like respiratory droplets, infection prevention, these are pages that are very important for this and other diseases. And I was surprised by how some of these pages were very, just stub articles, not very well developed. So given the limitations that exist in our participation, we are not restricted to editing to any specific article, but to these other broader topics. And just last week, we got the message that in response to COVID, the CDC had created more than 1,000 specific documents with guidance. So we get informed of this guidance coming up every day. So we try to scan Wikipedia pages to see if the the content that is there is accurate, or not updated, because for instance, with masks, it changed. First, CDC used to say one thing, then it changed what's said about masks. So we go there and try to alert through the talk pages, and also through or adding links in the external links, and see also sections of the article where the community can find these documents. And also one of the lessons learned is we should make use of the literature published before the emergency, for which a robust body of literature exists on infectious disease and things like that. So it is an opportunity to broaden the reach of these articles. And also it becomes clear that we need as an institute to develop an emergency response strategy that is not in place. Right now, the NIOSH is supporting the CDC, a much larger agency, and they're very happy about that, but they do not have their own strategy. And so we are pushing for the strategy because we know, unfortunately, this will not be the last emergency. So we are hoping to be better prepared at the next, when there is another need like that. And I just want to thank John Sadowski, is doing fantastic work and helped me critique this presentation. The Wiki Education is always very responsive and contribute to this effort. There are many, it was an emergent issue dealing with very high topics, and it was great to have the support of Wiki Education and those attending. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much. There was one question, which is, were there any parts of the CDC involved with editing Wikipedia or having a Wikipedian in residence apart from NIOSH that you're aware of?
Not that I know of. But what we are doing is we have our Wikipedian train our staff. So there are many now in our institute that are doing that. But I suspect, the thing is, the CDC is enormous. I suspect there are people doing it, but not as established strategy. So I am sure there are others at the CDC that are doing, but in their own personal time, but not as part of the strategy. And what we are pushing now, particularly, this is a good situation, as it was a big learning lesson learned from Ebola, that the institute should have a strategy for that.
So there's a question about Wikipedia's rules about original research and how Wikipedia doesn't allow original research. And wondering if you have thoughts about whether that prohibition on original research might affect the speed of dissemination of information in these urgent situations.
That's a very good question, because it's a novel disease. There cannot be a systematic review, although there is already a systematic review on personal protective equipment, but on the disease per se, there cannot be there's not a big body of literature. So what Wikipedians have is, single articles that are coming out. So I think the need is to have these articles that are coming out with a disclaimer. This is a situation that's changing, and the science is moving very quickly. So it is an exceptional situation, and I think there should be a mechanism to address that, saying, this is not how we usually operate, but this is a situation that would require that. So I think it could be addressed with a caveat. This is could change, because this is a single investigation that at this point suggests a link or suggests whatever the single study is suggesting, but with a caveat note that this might change, because it's not, there is not a body of literature supporting that statement. It's one single study.
Mm.
But I think it should be there. That's my opinion. I think it should be there.
So maybe related to that, there was also a question about preprints, and if you have thoughts about potentially valuable research that hasn't undergone peer review yet. So it's not necessarily the Wikipedians' original research, but would you say the same thing about including preprints on Wikipedia?
No, that I think might be a bit. I think it should. It might be too early. I would not. I would be more cautious with that, because particularly now, all journals are expediting reviews. So there should not be a big delay if you wait for, final approval. So yeah, I would wait and not publish on preprints.
Going back to mentioning the question about other parts of the CDC that does Wikipedia editing. If somebody wanted to encourage a government agency to be more involved with Wikipedia, whether through a Wikipedian in residence or some other sort of editing program, what are the kinds of things that you would suggest to bring to them? What are the sorts of things that really sold NIOSH on getting behind Wikipedia? I know you touched on this with the Ebola outbreak, for example, but I wonder if you can generalize that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I think what worked for us, there are several things. Agencies, nowadays, very easy to track. How did people got to your webpage? Most people do that now. NIOSH certainly did, and start realizing that more and more people are getting to the NIOSH web page because they were in Wikipedia, and there was a link, and then they got referred. So actually, if you take off direct searches on Google, only OSHA, which is a very close related federal agency, other than Google and other search engines, people were coming to website because they were in Wikipedia. So the referrals was a great motivator to realize, okay, people are going there for information, and we are coming at as a second step. So we want to make sure the information, our information that's in Wikipedia is good. And also the metrics, you go and look at the metrics of any article, and you can see that that's where people are going. And, of course, a lot of people in my institute are my age or older, and there was resistance and skepticism. Wikipedia. They say, like it or not, that's where people are going. So if you want to get information out there in an understandable, easy to understand, so it can be incorporated, that's where it has to go. The other aspect I mentioned, because, Wikipedia involves a degree of altruism. You're thinking about sharing. But particularly for younger researchers who need to focus on their career, what are the motivations for them to do that? And that's why I brought out metrics, because now the impact of your science is being evaluated more broadly than the old outdated impact factor. And the impact in the real world is being evaluated through these social media avenues. And, in this broader evaluation, Wikipedia is counted. So they realize this, and this was also something pushed by the National Science Foundation. There is scholarly recognition for your contributions in other media, including Wikipedia. So I think these are the three motivators: how people get to your website, the number of views speaks for itself, and also that you are being recognized for that, for your outreach effort.
It really is hard to beat Wikipedia's metrics when it comes to impact.
And one thing, initially, I just want to say, I got involved, very excited about it. And then very quickly, I became a bit overwhelmed. Oh my God, there's so much to be done. How do I go for this? And that's one of the things that I really liked with our collaboration with Wiki Education, because they don't actually, universities don't need us, but what we have so many collaborations with universities. So we're able to bring together groups from different universities, and they build on each other. And this has been fantastic. So I really would encourage that route too, of considering the work that can be done with universities.
All right, thank you so much. I think that was a very informative talk. Thank you so much. And I think we're gonna go to Lane Rasberry to talk about Wikidata. Thank you, Thais.
Excellent. Happy to see Lane and everybody.
Hi, Lane.
How do you do, Ryan?
Lane Rasberry is Wikimedian in residence at the School of Data Science at the University of Virginia. His interests include popular science, consumer protection, civic engagement, access to health information, clinical research, the open movement, data science, LGBT history, and Wikimedia projects. And Lane's going to speak to us about COVID-19 on Wikidata. All
That's right. Shall we?
Here we go. We shall. Thank you, Lane.
Yes, COVID-19 seen through Wikidata. How do you do? I am Lane Rasberry. I'm staff Wikimedian, the University of Virginia and their School of Data Science. This is what Thais was talking about. The CDC has one of these. I encourage every university or knowledge center to consider getting a Wikipedian to facilitate the flow of knowledge from their organization into Wikipedia and out to the broader world. Netha also was talking about this. We need more experts contributing to Wikipedia. In my talk, I'm going to say something about Wikidata. Perhaps some of you watching this are not so familiar with Wikidata, which is a complement to the more familiar Wikipedia. I'm going to say what it is, what I really want to talk about is how Wikidata presents COVID-19. Anyone can edit Wikidata. I'll say something about that and take any questions that you guys have. So jumping right to it, why should anyone care about Wikidata? Why not just focus on Wikipedia? Why look at another project? Wikidata multiplies Wikipedia's already massive impact. People should care about Wikipedia because it really is the most requested, published, accessed, and consulted source of information on just about every topic. There's a simple explanation for that. I've got a brand here. It's not about Google, really. It's about the entirety of the internet. When people are searching for anything, wherever they go, in Google or whatever else, search engines direct traffic to Wikipedia. To a lesser extent, Wikipedia information and knowledge leaves Wikipedia and goes back into Google and other publication platforms. That's how it's been. But since the advent of Wikidata, this has kind of changed. So search engines direct fewer people to Wikidata as compared to the more familiar Wikipedia. But information in Wikidata, it's going everywhere. So for example, if someone searches for information, and excuse the blurring here, there's copyrighted images here I wanted to use free and open. But this is a Google search return page. And I have searched at the top, coronavirus pandemic in New York. And Google itself, on its very page, it's pulling data from Wikipedia Wikidata and then putting it into the Google search results. So this isn't even on Wikipedia. This is from Google. And information is being presented here. So this isn't just about Google. If you ask Amazon's Alexa service a question, Amazon tries to answer questions based on the information in Wikidata. If you ask Apple's Siri a question, Siri gets information from Wikidata, and a great many other publications. They're pulling the information out of Wikidata and republishing it in their own medium. So information from the Wiki network is reaching an even larger audience than the already impressive reach of Wikipedia. So what is Wikidata? Here's a very familiar Wikipedia article. You can see it's prose text. Everyone knows this. But Wikidata, it also has versions of these Wikipedia articles. Wikidata presents them in a different way. It deconstructs the facts and claims of the sort that would appear as general reference information in a Wikipedia article in a certain way. So when it's talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, Wikidata says, well, that's an instance of a pandemic. It makes a claim. So of all the things in the article, it's making very specific claims about facts, trying to match them to citations with much of the same sourcing requirements that people have talked about in Wikipedia. We need expert sources, perhaps not preprints, usually not, maybe never. All right. And then other claims get deconstructed. Like when you're talking about the pandemic, how many people had died at a given point in time and where was this valid? Or what are the impacts of the pandemic on education, on the aviation industry, on, like Jason mentioned, the cannabis industry or any arbitrary industry? What have sources said and how can we summarize them? And something else unusual about Wikidata, there's no ambiguity in what a person's talking about. A person can be very specific in asking what information they want. If you went to a typical search engine and you type COVID-19, you may get information about the disease that affects the human body, the pandemic, which is the presence of the disease in society, or you could get information about the virus. But these things are not ambiguous in Wikidata. A person can ask a specific question and get specific information right out of Wikidata. Now, I wanted to demonstrate, here's what we really want to talk about, COVID-19 and Wikidata. What can we see? How can we browse Wikidata and get interesting information to edify our perspective and teach us about COVID-19? I wanted to do a demo of a query. This is a fundamental way you ask Wikipedia, Wikidata, a question about this general reference body of information. I wanted to choose a popular topic, and we have excellent traffic data. As Thijs was saying, the reason why the CDC contributes to Wikipedia is because we have traffic data knowing that people are actually reading Wikipedia. And Jason earlier, he was talking about a particular body of information that he was aware existed and was aware is possible. We know the traffic to all the Wikipedia articles, and there's one Wikipedia article that's consistently popular year after year, It updates a bit every year, but when you're asking a question to Wikidata, you phrase your question, Wiki, please show me X, which have characteristic Y. You phrased it in this question in a particular language. And to ask a popular question, we know that this is the most consistently popular Wikipedia article year after year. It updates who has died in this given year. And we're going to ask Wikidata. Wikidata, please. Can you please show me the people who have died from COVID-19? All right. Popular topic. A lot of people want to know this. And this is a lot of people's entry point into understanding COVID-19. Somebody in their country, every country had this story. People in given countries would hear of some prominent figure contracting the disease. It starts a national discussion. So this plays out over and over by country, by language community, by town, by field of profession. So Wikidata has this list of all the prominent people in every culture in the world, and people might enter this in any language whatsoever. It gets translated to the language of the person doing the query, but you can ask who has died. You can say, show me all the people who are university professors who have died of COVID, or show me all the people by region. I only care about Latin America, and I'd like to see that list. And then Wikidata can present these kind of lists to a person. So Wikidata is not something to exactly browse or click from article to article in the same way that one would do that in Wikipedia. But if someone brings various kinds of questions to Wikidata, Wikidata will generate these kind of lists, and a person can get some real insight into the world. I'm going to ask another question, and I just want to ask this question as a way of showing the serendipity of Wikidata, and also that Wikidata answers the question that a person would ask. And supposing someone wants to know this, what is the country that has the highest percentage of COVID-19 confirmed cases? You ask this question, Wikidata is going to have an answer for you. You have to answer it ask the question in a particular way. You could say, Wikidata, give me the list of all the sovereign states. And I want you guys watching, think in advance, what is the answer to this question going to be? Show me how many cases there have been in these various states. Consider the population. We're going to divide the number of cases by population. What do you think is the country, the state that has the highest incident rate? I had my expectations, but when I ran this, I was surprised. We get all the data that's been put into Wikidata. Vatican City is oversized. What do you know? In Vatican City, they have a population of 800. One of those people has had COVID-19. This person's recovered. It's an outsized influence. Wikidata answers the question in the way that you ask it. And this is just typical of database query, but this is still an insightful answer. And a person could click around in these various countries and look at the case rates for any given country. What we have here is a repository of general reference information, which complements the various Wikipedia articles like Jason was talking about. There's a Wikipedia article, COVID-19 in every country, and Wikidata helps orient and sort the references that get cited and the data that gets presented in these articles. There's different ways that the data migrates from Wikidata into Wikipedia, the info boxes. So let's look at a Wikipedia article again. Again, prose text. People find this by query on the internet. They come to arrive at Wikipedia. And take a look at this box right here. It's often at the top right of a Wikipedia article, an info box. And in an info box, we've moved from the pandemic. Now we're talking about the disease. Okay. And in this info box, we have a list of the symptoms of COVID-19, the disease. It causes fever. It has complications such as pneumonia. There's risk factors associated with it. One can present this by doing hand washing and social distancing. These are very specific words. Like if we can translate these terms like fever, that's a universal concept. Every culture and every language community is going to have some concept of fever. And if we can translate that, then when we're presenting all these case updates for these various countries around the world, we can also do it in various languages of the world. And whereas it might be difficult to translate an entire sentence that describes how does fever relate to COVID-19, it's much simpler to make a statement of fact to say, here's symptom, it equals fever, and we put that in an info box. And in fact, info boxes get translated all the time based on Wikidata information. So Wikidata would have an entry for the disease, COVID-19, the disease, and then it would have a property that it's going to have certain symptoms. And then if we fill out those symptoms in any one language, and we already have these terms translated into other languages like fever, we translate fever just in general, but when COVID-19 comes along, we already have the translations ready for 100 languages, maybe 300 languages, ready to go and ready to put into an info box so that we can provide information into many languages at once in some systematic way. And if somebody changes something in one language or they have an authoritative source, then we have a way of propagating out that information into every language at once through a controlled central method. So this is the power of Wikidata and how we're able to transport so much information outward so easily, so quickly. The translation interface, it can look in so many different ways. Netha was mentioning the Schwash project. I'm a contributor and organizer for a certain part of this, a Wikidata part of this. And that's the project in which communities in South Asia, working in various languages of India and the region, are translating content. So we have this list of medical terms. We can pull them up and say if we have a medical term in English language and we want to translate it into Bangla, Bengali language, or Hindi, then we can start in one language and by give volunteers a list of the terms we need translated and they can translate them into other languages to appear in info boxes or be used otherwise or to propagate around the world into various language communities. All right, suppose that you're convinced, suppose you're a government agency or a university and you want to say, I care about humanitarian data, I want to contribute, I want this information to propagate around and get to places. What can I do? Well, we in the Wiki community and Wikidata community, we partner with projects like OpenStreetMap, another nonprofit free and open data organization. We pull content from them and you can ask Wikidata to give you some information that is cross-shared with OpenStreetMap and other databases. And you could say something like, I want to map out hospitals in the world. Show me the hospitals in the world. I asked you questions earlier, Wikidata, dear Wikidata, please show me such and such. It's actually a coding language. It's not so easy. We're not at the point where you can just ask your phone to show you something. There's a certain technical code that it goes through, Sparkle. It's presented here. What we're asking for is, please show me an instance of a hospital as logged in Wikidata, and I'd like to get the information in the form of coordinate locations on a map. What do you know? Here's all the hospitals that we know about in Wikidata mapped out here. Now look at this map. I'm going to ask you a question about it in just a second. I want to show you another query. Now, supposing we care about COVID-19 outbreaks, we can ask that. Where are there COVID-19 outbreaks, or where has a quarantine been issued? I want this kind of information on a map. We have that in Wikidata. There's a way that you phrase the question, and I'm just going to say that one of the reasons why we've been so prepared for COVID-19 is, as Netha said, we've been through this before. We went through this with the Ebola crisis. Wikipedia had a response to that. It's very good that Jason started an article, Wikipedia's response to COVID-19, because Wikipedia responds to disasters. You better believe it does. Wikidata, please show me disasters by location. Bam. Okay, every different color is a different kind of disaster. Disasters are things that happen. Somebody needs to respond to it. And Wikipedians definitely respond to every plane crash in the world, train derailment, earthquake, building falling down, fire, and yes, epidemics too. So these appear on the map. If you click on these dots, and you can go into this presentation, it's in the event page. These slides are interactive. If you were to click on these dots through the presentation, you could see the various Wikipedia articles that these various disasters on this map represent. I want to bring up an issue. So as I said, not every division of the CDC has a Wikipedian. It's also unusual to get a lot of medical experts from reputable organizations to contribute to Wikipedia. We have institutional biases. There's some organizations contributing to Wikipedia, some less so. Here's that map of hospitals again. Here's disasters. Do you notice anything funny about this? All right. I'll tell you, we're overrepresented, or we're correctly represented, or rather represented in North America and Europe, places with more money, we're underrepresented in places that have less money, less internet connectivity, less participation in Wikidata. So we're trying to correct these kinds of biases. Wikidata is only going to give information that we have. And in places where there's fewer wiki editors and fewer organizations sponsoring wiki training and outreach, then our data is less good. And that's just the way it's working for now. All right. So we know that we want to share the best medical information. We know that we need to pull out more knowledge from reliable sources, connect this knowledge to citations to those sources, and propagate it out. Where do we get this knowledge? Well, we get it from academic publications. In academic publication, this is what university professors and people at research institutes produce. It's these documents in very objective language, saying which researcher contributed to such and how the knowledge was produced. This is the source of Wikipedia information, pulling information from the most reliable sources. We look for the papers that are covering the topic, and we try to bring these into Wikipedia. We can sort these in traditional ways. So there's different browsing interfaces like PubMed in the medical sector for sorting out these papers. Wikipedians have greater research needs than what the government interfaces like PubMed are able to offer, and we move very rapidly. There's various projects in Wikipedia and Wikidata. A project to which I contribute to is something called Scholia, which is a sub-project of something called WikiCite to sort out the world's citations. And Scholia, to the extent that we know what kind of medical papers are out there, or any kind of research paper is out there, Scholia helps us browse those. So for example, if you type in coronavirus disease into Scholia, and this is a tool analogous to Google's product, Google Scholar. So you type in what you're trying to research, and Scholia will give you the research publications about that topic. So we have an annotated collection of papers about coronavirus disease, and this is useful for anyone who's trying to build out Wikipedia articles on this topic, so that we can be sure that we're citing good sources about these things. It's also helpful for someone outside of Wikipedia who's doing their own research for whatever purpose. So some of the kind of things that we track in this is, who are the authors publishing about this topic? We count how many times an author has shown up in a paper and how many times they published on a given disease or whatever topic that it is that we've annotated. And we can show things like author networks, who frequently publishes with each other, what universities are doing research on a topic. Maybe we'd like to leave Wikipedia and write to the university or visit a university research department or look for journals that are appropriate. If you found one good article, maybe that can lead to more good articles. So we're continually trying to improve the research discovery workflow so that we can get excellent sources as quickly as possible to improve these Wikipedia articles and do whatever other kind of research improvement that we want to do. We track, if someone's talking about COVID-19, what else are they talking about? And there's different ways for tweaking this. So we could say, I'm only interested in matching COVID-19 with, say, a particular region, India, for example. And then you can get the papers that are just talking about that. The point of all this is just to say that Wikipedians care a lot about reliability of sources, are doing a lot within Wikidata to connect all this kind of information that we're pulling in with the best available sources that anyone can find. We annotate this in every way that we can. Another kind of annotation we're doing, we import entire data sets. Say like from clinicaltrials.gov, the United States governmental database of what medical research is happening in human subjects. So we've imported the entirety of clinicaltrials.gov. Thank you to the Wikipedians at Duke University. Vanderbilt University is also contributing. My own University of Virginia does this. Many people do this. It's hundreds of people doing this. It's a crowdsourced initiative, and we annotate these clinical trials, try to match them with whatever kind of tagging. What is the trial about? What drug were they testing? Who is hosting the trial? Where are the research sites? We annotate this in Wikidata in ways that we cannot go to the government websites and annotate because those websites are not interactive. They don't respond to questions. They don't respond to community input. But we can sort this out in Wikipedia and learn something about what kind of research is going on and where. Anyone can participate in Wikidata. people were asking Jason, how do you get involved in Wikidata? I'll tell you, there's a bit of a learning curve, more than Wikipedia perhaps, but there's plenty for a person to do. You can edit if you like. I encourage you to give it a try. You can also browse different kinds of queries in Wikidata. But I'll tell you, if you want to get into Wikipedia or Wikidata, the best way for a beginner to do that is to talk with an actual human. If you can, join a virtual Wikipedia event like this one right here and right now. Visit a Wikipedian in person. Or if you're just online, visit a Wiki Project. Jason talked about Wiki Project COVID-19. Very friendly people there. If you don't know what you're doing and you want an orientation to Wikipedia, just go there and say, hello, I'm interested in such and such. Can somebody help me out? And somebody's going to respond to you. You can do this for any subject. There's Wiki Projects for movies and for sports and for every country and for every academic subject. Whatever you're interested in on Wikipedia or Wikidata, just go and say, help me, can somebody orient me? And a friendly Wikipedian will respond to you. Thanks to everyone who's making Wikidata develop at such a fast pace. I want to call out Wikipedia Signpost, the English Wikipedia community newsletter. For anyone who's interested in Wikipedia culture, I encourage you to read it. Wiki Project COVID-19, Wiki New York City, thanks for organizing the event. Wikidata Medicine, please come say hello if you'd like to curate medical information, academic articles, anything related to COVID-19. And a special call out, again, I contribute to this project, Swashed in India. So many volunteers in South Asia developing so many translations of medical content so quickly in Wikidata and Wikipedia. Thanks so much. I can take any questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Lane. We do have some questions for you.
Oh.
So the first question is, this comes in the context of when you had the list of people who had died from COVID-19. What's the benchmark to determine who should be included? Not everyone who dies is added, correct?
That's right. So there's multiple kinds of data. For individuals, Wikipedia has inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria. In Wikipedia, we call this notability. So if a person's notable, they can have a Wikipedia article or a Wikidata entry, and if they're not notable, then they shouldn't have those things. The determinant of notability is whether there's sources to cite. So if multiple third-party media coverage, multiple third-party media sources are available to cite for a person, then that person can have a Wikipedia article. So we're talking about celebrities, public figures, people in the media. But that's not all that Wikidata covers. So Wikidata also pulls in epidemiological statistics. So I actually mentioned two kinds of data. I mentioned the reports of individual celebrities who are featured in their own biographies. And I also mentioned the population level case statistics, which typically come from a national level health agency that we get for every country in the world. So Wikidata collects both of these. It's possible to do queries. You'd be hard pressed to find a list of global celebrities who have died of COVID outside of the Wiki world. This is a unique data set. You're only going to get that from Wikipedia. But also for those population level case statistics, very hard to find those and be able to query them, especially in a web browser, anywhere else except for Wikidata. Other questions?
Yes, so there is a question. I'm going to paraphrase it, and we're getting a little bit philosophical here, I think. Are there concerns about the reduction of human knowledge into discrete objects that are basically described with a small number of words?
Boy, are there. Okay, yeah, if someone wants to talk to philosophy, actually, Wikipedia is open 24 hours a day, so every day. If you want to start an argument about anything whatsoever, then there's somebody in Wikipedia who will debate that with you. So you can go into, there's Wiki projects for every subject, and on the top pages of these Wiki projects, what you do is you say, I see how this is represented. I don't think this is the fullness of the human experience. I think it should be represented this way, and somebody will engage with you. So some Wiki projects, they're more techie, some are more fuzzy. People have these debates all the time. It manifests in different ways in Wikipedia. It plays out in so many different ways. So if somebody experiences this, I would say that's the easiest way to understand these kind of things quickly and abstractly. I just don't have a better answer for you than that.
Thanks, Lane. And can you suggest guidelines for best practices regarding references on Wikidata?
What a very specific question. You must be a Wikidata editor. That's something that people would argue about. Should it go beyond reference URL or stated in? The challenge with stated in is that so what we're talking about is, should you just link to a bare URL as a form of a citation, or should you have more structured data about the entire source? So where we are in Wikidata is that Wikidata currently has about 70 million items. For those of you who deal with data sets, you might say that's not so much data. And it's challenging because we have an open query system on the web for anyone to use, and it's quite taxed. Wikipedia is a nonprofit project. We're not like Google, that we have acres and acres of data centers for unlimited queries everywhere. Wikidata actually, it gets overrun, it gets timed out. There's too many queries and it can be too complicated. So we have some hard limits about how much information that we can store in citations. We're using a lot of bare URLs these days just because we, for example, haven't imported the Library of Congress into Wikidata yet. You know, we're going to get to this. Eventually, every source is going to be indexed in Wikidata, and then we're going to use stated URL and have full citation information so that no matter how specific your query is about a source, we're going to be able to get you that information. So I would say we want to give the most complete citation information possible. However, the technology just isn't there yet for Wikidata because of lack of money, lack of resources. We're certainly not lacking in data, but we'll get there. Wikidata will, it gets twice as good every year.
All right. So at this point, I'd like to also bring back Jason and Thais. Netha, who is in Sweden, it is quite late there, so she had to disconnect. We'd like to take general questions for the group at this point. And to get things started, I thought I'd ask this. So there are probably going to be people watching who want to get involved either on Wikipedia or Wikidata. If someone has maybe a free hour, what would you say would be one thing that they can do to contribute to this kind of material on Wikipedia or Wikidata? It's open to anybody.
I would respond to that by saying, I would remind everyone that Wikipedia is a volunteer initiative, right? Like, no one's paying you to contribute to Wikipedia. So it should be something that you personally are interested in, because if external factors are influencing you and that's your primary reason for contributing to Wikipedia, like there's some value in that, but that's not going to be like your driving motivator. So my advice would be just to think of something that is of personal interest to you, see how it's being covered on Wikipedia currently. And if this is a topic that you're familiar with, odds are maybe there's some things that you know that are not being mentioned, and you can do a little research and insert some facts into the Wikipedia article, and spend a few minutes to click on the edit button and get a sense for whether you're interested in kind of working through markup or just using the visual editor to add a few sentences. And it's trial and error. You'll make a few mistakes, but if you've got an hour and you want to try to make the internet better, I encourage you to be bold and try to do just that.
I just would like to add that, that feeling I expressed earlier, that sometimes you feel overwhelmed. Oh, but there's so much to be done, so much I want to do. And then it was James Hellman who told, no, baby steps, correct a little mistake, add a citation, super important. Little contributions go a long way. So stick to things that you care about, that you have access to good information, and do this small edits. It's a big contribution in the end.
Lane, do you have a suggestion for somebody who wants to dip a toe in the water in Wikidata?
Conversation. So one could go to the main chat page, and that's linked out of my presentation, or you can go anywhere in Wikidata, ask a question, and people will orient you. Like, do your best to try to find the right place. but it's always okay to participate in conversations. And some things that you can say in conversations are, if you really can't do anything else, this is entirely welcome. Just say, thank you. I like what you did. Just go up to anybody and they'll always appreciate this. Go up to anybody, anything that anyone's done, and just say, thank you. I tried to understand what you did. It seems like a good job. Other thing you could say is ask anyone questions about their project. If you find an interesting project, people always want to talk about their project, and you help them, because when you ask a question and they answer it, that creates project documentation, which we have ways of cataloging in Wikipedia, and that builds out the history and the explanation of what the project is and how it's supposed to work. So this applies to Wikipedia, it applies to Wikidata. You can always have conversations with humans. Please do not talk about the subject of Wikipedia articles or the subject of Wikidata content. That is, Wikipedia and Wikidata, they're not a general forum for discussion of topics. They're a forum for discussing how to present these topics as general reference information to the world. So have a discussion about what's the best way to present something. Don't try to debate the topic itself.
These are all good advice. I'm going to pull up a question here from the comments. Will COVID-19 have any ongoing impact on Wikipedia's processes or cultural norms? Very interesting question. Lane, you're nodding your head vigorously.
So there's Wiki Project humanitarian metadata, and there's also something called Wiki Project disaster management. COVID-19 is a disaster. Disasters, we can't predict what the next disaster will be, but we're sure that another disaster is going to occur. And we've been through this before with Zika. We've been through this with Ebola. We're dealing with it with COVID. We've done this for so many other disasters. And our process gets better every time. How can we respond more quickly? How do we set up a new page? Like when Jason set up Wikipedia pages for every state, he didn't invent the idea of here's how to have a Wikipedia article for X in a given state or X in a given country. We practice this with other things, and we're getting better and better and faster and faster. And I would say with COVID-19, we've touched the entire world. So now, since this covers the entire world, there's every country, every language community who has been through this shared experience of a disaster. When this happens again, there is nobody in the world who is more ready to collaborate in the community than us. Not the World Health Organization, not the United Nations. CDC is a great organization. It operates in the United States mostly. It doesn't speak 100 different languages. So there's a limit to what any national health organization can do. But you bring something to Wikipedia, instantly 100 languages. That's just the way it is.
My first reaction to the question, I don't know about cultural norms. I feel like we're obviously already a community that operates mostly online and collaborates very well online. I will say I've had the pleasure of attending a lot of in-person meetups though. And the pandemic has impacted our inability to have national, international, local, and regional conferences. So to those of us who are active within the Wikimedia movement with in-person activities, that is how I personally have felt the impact of COVID. I know I waited years for there to finally be the first LGBT conference within the Wikimedia movement. It was supposed to be held in Europe this year, and that's now been canceled. And of course, I fully support that, but it's those instances in which you realize this is the real life impact of this disease, and that's how it's affecting our community. So I look forward to a time when we as a community can meet again in person, despite our amazing efforts to do online collaboration.
Well, and hi, Thomas, thank you for sending the question. We discussed a little bit the no original research rule, and I expressed an opinion that I think we could use banners and other alerts for this very extraordinary circumstance, because otherwise we will be writing after the fact, but that's, of course, I know that's a big rule, maybe difficult to change, but I think the situation might require that.
And is there anything else among the Wikimedia COVID-19 coverage that you think is urgently needed at this point? Is there something that stands out? I know that, especially Jason talked about if something needs happening, you should just go do it. So maybe somebody has already just gone and done it. But I suspect that there maybe are things that are still lacking that are maybe at the forefront of one of your brains.
I've scrolled through a lot of different articles on the topic. The first thing that comes to mind, only because I know I started a lot of these pages, so I've kind of seen how they've progressed or not. I don't know how representative this is of other parts of the world, but I've noticed in the United States, there may be an article for every state. Some of them are very, very well developed, and some of them are surprisingly short, if not even still stubs. And there's like a lot of very short articles out there about various Caribbean islands, other nations and cities and states. So you might be surprised how much area of development is still needed, even just in the basic geography articles. So start there, check the article about your country, see if you can help out, and you'll go down the rabbit hole and click on a few links, and before you know it, you'll end up somewhere where you can definitely make a difference.
I would suggest there is a cross-project coordination page that's not very busy, but I think that would be a good place also to go and bring more ideas and suggestions.
Any subject matter expert could critique any Wikipedia article and find things to do. So something else that could happen, more participation. Here's something any student can do. Any student can bring a Wikipedia article to their professor and ask their professor, would you look over this with me? Or a student can critique the Wikipedia article, bring the critique to the professor, get expert feedback, and then that student could edit the Wikipedia article to take whatever their professor said into Wikipedia. So this can happen in any culture, any language, anywhere in the world. Biggest gap that I see, we've got a certain amount of English language coverage. We really need better coverage, better translations, not just English into other languages. We need to bring other languages into English, which is much more challenging to do. We're still a very Western-oriented world. There's some languages that are dominant. German, Korean, French, English get translated all over. But what about the cultural experiences of other countries? We very rarely see languages of the developing world and underserved languages translated back to bring their experiences into English.
These are really great and inspiring answers. Thank you all so much for your time tonight. For Netha, who had to disconnect, for Jason, Thais, Lane, thank you so much. I think these were really fascinating talks. I would also like to thank my Wikimedia New York City peers, Megan, Richard, and Jimena, who have been really diligent in monitoring the comments and highlighting some of the great questions that have been coming out of there and responding to some. I've never been a YouTuber, so I'm very excited that I finally get to say, please remember to click the subscribe link. We are maybe doing some more of these sorts of planned events and would love for you to join us in the future. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, attendees. These talks will be available on Wikimedia Commons sometime in the next couple of days. But thank you all and have a great night.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Hi, everyone.